Well, my name's Jane Gilloly, and I am here to present The Suitcase of Love and Shame. And this is a film that I partially consider an audio work, and it is sourced from 60 hours of audio tape material that was recorded in the middle of last century. And the film has been based on a reconstruction of the audio that was found in this suitcase, and sparingly I layer in imagery. So it's the kind of film that I expect the audience to see with their ears.
Oh, darling, I got your tape last night, and I looked out the window, and here come a Pontiac driving in the driveway. He got about flipped the switch, and so I stopped it and put the tape in the cabinet and locked the cabinet up. But damn, that scared the hell out of me. I was afraid I'd get caught with the tape on here.
And to another thing you mentioned on your tape, to be sexy to men, I thought you had to act that way. Well, I don't. I am not sexy to men. And if I am, and that's one of my faults, I certainly hope that you expand on this subject, because I don't intend to do anything that's going to jeopardize me with you. You can be sure of that.
The recordings are between a man and a woman in the United States, in the middle of the country, and they're having an illicit affair. And so they chronicle many years of their relationship. And the recordings are everything from total banal daily life to very explicit sex tapes that they make for each other. So it's a huge range, and they're extremely intimate, very raw, very personal, very present, in a way that it's surprising to us, because in a way we tend to think that we know a lot about sort of reality recording. And this couple, at the time they were making these tapes, they weren't modeling themselves after anything. They hadn't heard anything like this before. And so they were somewhat inventing a form. So they're performing, certainly, but they're not necessarily imitating anything that we would recognize. And it's an incredible historical document, and it's a fascinating group of recordings.
Don't have to buy me diamonds and pearls, champagne, sables, and such.
Hear you tell me these things in my ear, and it's so wonderful, darling. There's nothing quite like a tape, is there?
They just cost money.
I found the recordings through a friend who, he's the one, Albert Stegg is the one who discovered them on eBay. And he did know that I had a film idea to make a film that was based on a collection. And so I was looking for objects, really, is what I thought I would find. And this grew out of, I moved recently, and in my packing up my life, I discovered a box of every birth control that I've used in my lifetime. It's a small little box. And I was going through it and just thinking about sort of like the medical history, the politics, the sexuality, like everything contained in this collection that, I'd kept over decades. And so to me, it was a very interesting way to think about time and to sort of tease apart a story, and different ways, different jumping off points to sort of talk about an era. And so I was hoping to find something like that would have a lot of variety and complexity to it. I wasn't looking for journal or diaries, and certainly not thinking I'd find recordings, but it was just an amazing find, so of course I wanted to use it. So the story for me is somewhat ordinary. I mean, this couple, Tom and Jeannie, are anyone. I mean, we all know how affairs go. One person is married, the other person isn't. And very early on, I think I'd only listened to less than 1 hour of the 60 hours of tape, and I already knew he wasn't going to leave his wife. It was just obvious to me. So I didn't really feel like I needed to reconstruct that story. We all knew that story. And although I'm truthful to that, I decided not to listen to the tapes in order. And I started randomly selecting tapes. And gradually I was building sort of thematic concepts that I wanted to explore in the film. And then I also knew that needed to hang somewhat on a narrative chronology, just so that people could follow it. I limited myself to only what was in the suitcase. And so there were certain things that were omitted because it was going to be much too difficult to try to construct them into the film. And then other things were themes that Tom and Jeannie returned to over and over and over again on the tapes. And so those were easy things to include, mostly about, you know, how much they wanted to be together, how secretive they had to be. They talked a lot about the technology. They talked a lot about their lives and their future. So I started to build a scenario that I imagined could have happened. And I'd listen to a tape and say, this would be a really good ending, or this would be another alternative way I could begin the film. And I just started ordering tapes. So what you hear are reconstructions. It's not necessarily the order that they were recorded, but it is the story. You know, they were lovers, they spent many years together, and no, he never leaves his wife. And so that basic story is there, and the drama and the heartache and the sort of just pathetic redundancy that affairs can have, it's all kind of used in the film. Yeah, so visually, initially I didn't want to use visuals, and I was thinking if it was possible I would do a theatrical piece where people came in and sat down and listened. And you might look at something on the screen, but it wouldn't necessarily be illustrative of what you're listening to. I was sort of thinking about Derek Jarman's Blue. I don't know if you know that film, but there's been other makers who have done things like that, made features where you were just looking at a screen. So initially I did think about that. And then I had a 30-minute cut. And unlike Jarman's Blue, where he was writing the script, I was limited, like I said, for my own reasons. I limited myself to the recordings. And it was harder for me to sustain it without some imagery. And so I started sparingly bringing in images that were more abstract or metaphorical, or some of the things that are contained in the suitcase I use. So there's sort of an index of like what the tape boxes looked like, what's written on the leader. There are some photographs. So I very very specifically crop them in a way with my camera. I re-photograph them in a way so that you never actually see who the people are. You might see part of their body. And so there's enough there to sort of provoke your imagination without telling you or giving you the exact image.